The case you are about to hear about today is one of the ones I find the most intriguing. Something that has a twist at the end that even M. Night Shyamalan couldn't even write. So if you're into true crime and you want to find things that you haven't heard about, this is the perfect video for you. And also, it is June, and you know what that means. It is the perfect time for today's video sponsor, June's Journey. June's Journey is a free-to-play hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story. If you're into true crime and all of that sort, this game is perfect for you. Make sure to download it by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment, or scan the QR code on the screen. June's Journey is my go-to for when I'm trying to take a break from everything and also keep my mind sharp. The different murder mysteries keep you on your toes, but you also gotta find these really hidden objects. One of my favorite features about the game is the ability to zoom in. Not only does it make it so you can see everything easier, but if you're having an issue finding the object, you can either hit the hint or zoom in and see if the name of the object is highlighted. If it is, that means it's somewhere on your screen. Move a little bit and you'll see it become unhighlighted. You know it's no longer on your screen. As you work your way through figuring out the mysteries, you can also customize your own mansion. Check out my beautiful one. June's Journey is free to play, and you can get it for Android and iOS. And if you're on desktop, you can get it through Facebook Games, so you're not going to miss out. I gotta say, it's great in the mornings if you're waking up, have a cup of coffee, if coffee is your thing, and play a little June's Journey, get that brain going. Once again, make sure to download June's Journey by clicking the link below or in the pinned comment, or scan that QR code on your screen. Want to give a special shout out to June's Journey for sponsoring this video. She was known as the Woman Without a Face, and she was one of the most brutal female serial killers to ever terrorize Europe. The German police would later dub this strange woman the Phantom of Heilbronn, because with over 40 committed crimes spanning over 2 decades, they believed she had to be a real-life phantom to evade capture for so long. Her first known murder was committed on the 25th of May in 1993, as her DNA was found on a cup after the ghastly murder of a 62-year-old woman in Eder, Oberstein, Germany. It wasn't long after this before she committed her next murder, that of a 61-year-old man. He was killed on the 21st of March 2001 in Freiburg, Germany. The Phantom of Heilbronn didn't only specialize in murder. She was an established thief too, because on the 24th of October 2001, her DNA was found on a leftover cookie in a trailer that had been forcefully opened during the night in Budenheim, Germany. Numerous attempts were made to trace her, as her DNA was found once again on a syringe containing heroin in October. But at the end of it all, the police force still came up with nothing. This strange woman had escaped unscathed once again, proving to everyone that she truly was the best of the best. Her DNA was found on a toy pistol after the robbery of some Vietnamese gemstone traders in Arbois, France. Tensions were rising now as the entire police force wondered how she managed to slip out of Germany undetected to continue her crime spree in France. A year would go by after this robbery before she would be heard from again, as on the 6th of May 2005 her DNA was found on a projectile after a strange fight that occurred between 2 brothers in Worms, Germany. During this time, any detective who took her case bore a confused look on their face, as the Phantom of Heilbronn didn't operate by pattern. It seemed like she just traversed the continent of Europe committing crimes anytime she felt like it. Things just got worse from there as the Phantom would continue on this trend, making her potentially untraceable. On the 3rd of October 2006, a year after her last crime, detectives would find her DNA once again on a stone that was used to smash a window during a burglary in Saarbrücken, Germany. I butchered that like crazy. And just a couple of months later, traces of her DNA was also found again, at an optometrist store that was burglarized in March 2007 in Upper Australia. The Phantom's gruesome murders and burglaries throughout the previous years had reached an all-time high now. But one of the most heinous crimes she committed, a crime that proved to be the breaking point for the German authorities, was the murder of a police officer on the 25th of April 2007 in Heilbronn, Germany. All efforts were redoubled to capture her. But at the end of it, nothing came out of their investigations as she managed to escape undetected once again. And it was after this murder that she was finally given the nickname, the Phantom of Heilbronn. At the time, the Phantom had committed an alarming spree of crimes during the years between 2003 and 2007. She was implicated in over 20 burglaries, in addition to the thefts of motorbikes and cars that were spread across 3 states in Germany. In addition to these, 2 states in Australia. She would continue this crime spree early into the next year, as on the 30th of January 2008, her DNA was found in a vehicle that was used to transport the bodies of 3 Georgians that were brutally killed in Germany. Just like in the previous years, the Phantom would go on to commit numerous burglaries in the year 2008. And it wasn't until the month of October that she was connected to another murder, as her DNA was found once again in the car of a nurse who was found dead in Germany. This murder would prove to be the Phantom's last. A special task force was formed to capture her, and by any means possible. In January 2009, a hefty reward of 300,000 euros was offered for clues to the whereabouts of the Phantom. The Phantom had terrorized the country of Germany for far too long, and they were willing to find her by any means necessary. Now, to anyone who's been listening to the details of this case, I'm sure you're wondering why the police haven't found the Phantom yet, as they already have numerous samples of her DNA. But the answer is, things weren't that simple due to numerous factors. For starters, DNA science now isn't what it used to be years ago. Plus, the Phantom's crime pattern, in addition to the geographical disparities of the crime scenes, made it much harder to pinpoint her exact location. Even her alleged accomplices in the crimes she committed made things harder for the police, as not only did they all come from different backgrounds, with the lineup including Romanians, Slovaks, Serbs, Iraqis, and Albanians, but each and every one of them also vehemently denied her existence. Things got even worse from there, as some witnesses who claimed they had seen her described her as a man, and she had never been captured or caught on any security cameras since she started committing her crimes. Things were really looking bleak for the German police force at the time, but they weren't going to give up. And while they continued to carry out their relentless witch hunt in hopes of finding the Phantom of Heilbronn, a forensic analyst was uncovering a fact concerning the case that would shock the entire continent of Europe. The Phantom of Heilbronn met her end in March 2009. Detectives had found her DNA once again on the body of a male burn victim. It was a strange murder that raised numerous suspicions, and in an effort to identify the corpse, the Phantom's DNA was detected once again in the strangest place, as her fingerprints were found on the application of a male asylum seeker. This discovery turned everything concerning the case on its head, as the forensic analysis began speculating a new theory, and it didn't take long before they found their answer. An answer that stated, the Phantom of Heilbronn never existed. To prove this theory, they analyzed the cotton swabs that were normally used for collecting DNA samples on crime scenes. And lo and behold, the Phantom's DNA was found on all of them. They believed the cotton swabs used for the DNA probing were already contaminated in the factory before they were shipped, as it was later revealed that they had all come from the same factory. This factory in question employed numerous Eastern European women who handled the packaging of the cotton swabs, and shockingly enough, the Phantom's DNA belonged to one of the female factory workers that handled the swabs with their hands. Their baffling theory was further proven by the Bavarian police, as they got their swabs from a different factory. This explained why none of the Phantom's DNA was ever found in Bavaria, even though the state was very close to many of the crimes her DNA was found. As you would guess, the revelation was a hard pill to swallow, and some still argued that the swabs were properly sterilized, so the DNA couldn't have come from the factory. But investigations revealed that while the sterilization process killed any potential fungi, virus, and bacteria on them, the swabs were still contaminated with traces of human cells in the form of sweat, skin, particles, saliva, and other bodily secretions. And at the end of it all, it was officially proven that the so-called Phantom of Heilbronn never truly existed. The bizarre case of the Phantom of Heilbronn left the entire continent of Europe baffled, as it truly was the most colossal wild goose chase of the 20th century. Numerous security measures were immediately put in place to minimize the chance of another contamination event in DNA analysis. This was done to make sure things like this never happen again. For those of you still sticking around, I'm going to go ahead and start another true crime. On the 13th of June 1964, 33-year-old Calvin Jones was sitting in his car with his then 23-year-old girlfriend Sarah Tolbert. Apparently, the couple had traveled from their home state to visit Calvin's father on his birthday. They were both in the driveway of an unspecified hotel in Maine, and everything was fine until 1:03 a.m. Numerous witnesses stated that the couple had gotten into a serious argument while sitting in Calvin's car, and that they could hear the couple's rising screaming match from their respective rooms. The witnesses believed both Calvin and Sarah were drunk as their yells became more violent and irate. And it didn't take long after that before they heard a profound shriek coming from the car. In one of the nearby witnesses' words, "I heard a thump and then a loud shriek. It even scared my children, I have to say." And while none of the witnesses saw what actually happened with their own eyes, it would later be revealed by Calvin himself that in an attempt to end the escalating argument with his then-girlfriend, he grabbed a rubber hose and beat her to death with it. Calvin later went into detail as he confessed he had struck Sarah 15 times on the head before she finally stopped moving. Shocked at what he had just done, Calvin Jones then proceeded to drive around for several hours hoping Sarah would eventually wake up. But she unfortunately passed away in the passenger's seat. Calvin, who didn't know this at the time, kept driving around with the corpse of his girlfriend in his car, but it wasn't long before he finally realized that she was dead. After it had dawned on him that he had just committed first-degree murder, Calvin Jones did the only thing that could come to his now spiraling mind. He drove to the police station and confessed to Sarah's cold-blooded murder. To the cops at the station where Calvin confessed his crimes, the case was already closed before it began. For starters, this murder wasn't Calvin's first offense, as his records showed that he was an ex-con who had already spent time in prison for attempting to poison his wife. All this in addition to his detailed confession and the body of Sarah Tolbert that was found in his car, just as he stated, with severe abrasions to her head. The cops also easily found the bloody hose used to commit the morbid act in the car, with Mr. Jones's prints all over it. The case wasn't even closed yet, and the detectives, the cops, the judge, and the jury, and even Calvin himself all knew he was going to spend the rest of his days in prison. Everything looked bleak for Calvin, and I'm sure he was already accepting his fate. But before his day in court had come, Calvin's already condemned fate took an unforeseen and dramatic turn. As I said earlier, while it was clear to nearly everyone that Calvin had committed the murder of his girlfriend in cold blood, the men and women in forensic science begged to differ, as an autopsy carried out by the forensic pathologist proved without a doubt that Calvin Jones was innocent. The claims came as a shock to everyone who was working on the case. But as the details concerning the autopsy were revealed, they all came to the same conclusion that Mr. Jones was innocent. To understand the drastic and sudden change of tone in this case, I'll need to give you a full rundown of what happened, as while everyone else had been coming to a clear conclusion, the medical examiners stated that even if Calvin Jones had beaten Sarah Tolbert in his car that night, she was already going to die the next morning. Sarah was already suffering from a blood disease, sickle cell anemia, an important detail that was only discovered after they carried out the medical examination on Miss Tolbert's body. It was further stated that Sarah was already on the verge of dying during that fateful night when Mr. Jones assaulted her, and she had only a few hours left to live before the disease became fatal. To properly prove every claim, the autopsy was further carried out by 2 different medical examiners, and at the end of their thorough examinations, they both came to the conclusion that Miss Sarah Tolbert had died from natural causes, and the beatings she had received from Mr. Calvin Jones didn't play any role in her unfortunate and untimely death. The surprising news came like words of joy to Calvin, as in light of new details his charges were bumped down to one of assault and battery. On the day of his trial, the presiding judge, after going through the new evidence, eventually agreed to accept Mr. Calvin's guilty plea to assault and battery. The judge termed the case rare and unusual, as everyone who had heard of the case was still incredibly confused as to the outcome of the trial. But in the judge's own words, "Were it not for the medical reports, this man would have been facing a murder trial today." I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to this video. And don't forget to get into the murder mystery game with June's Journey. Click that link in the description or pinned comment. Become the detective. So these were a couple cases that are very interesting. I hadn't heard about them before, so I hope many of you haven't either. I thought the whole Phantom of Heilbronn was a crazy story, especially the twist at the end that they never existed. Probably better than some movies if you think about it. In fact, they should make a movie on it. Regardless, if you enjoyed the content and want more, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the like for me. I will catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. Bad bye.